Well, welcome to your go-to show for health and wellness. And today, well, first of all, I'm Jonathan Fisher.
And I'm Aiden Seraphim, and today we are going to learn about what hypnosis is really all about. So, Jonathan.
Yeah. Oh, this seat is hot.
What is this hypnosis thing, and are you going to make me bark like a dog or quack like a chicken?
Okay, one, do you want to bark like a dog or quack like a chicken?
Maybe.
Did you say quack like a chicken?
Yes. Oh, duck. Oh, yes.
Did you? He did say like a chicken, didn't he, though?
I did say like a chicken.
Because now that would be something. Because then I could make you moo like a pig. Then we were flipping everything around.
That'd be awesome.
So, just to kind of deal with that, because we'll get into that a little bit in a second, but I can't make someone do something that they don't want to do. Now, in a bit, I might talk about the difference between what I'm doing as opposed to stage hypnosis, and there isn't a big difference. But there is a slight difference. First of all, what is this hypnosis thing, right?
Right.
What is hypnosis?
Exactly.
Okay. I don't know. Nobody really knows. Here's what it isn't. Hypnosis hypnosis is the god of sleep. It's not sleep. When someone is hypnotized, they are not asleep. They're aware of what's going on. Usually people remember what was happening after. Again, they can't be made to do something that they don't want to do, that's against their morals, ethics, personality. But as far as what's actually happening in hypnosis, we don't really know. We know that it's somewhat related to placebo, which is a real response. We'll talk about that sometime. And it isn't a placebo. It is definitely different than the placebo effect, although it might sort of hijack that as well, and it does other things. Some people would say that hypnosis is a kind of focused concentration. That's usually what I say. If I'm doing my first session, I'll say, well, hypnosis is focused concentration paired with deep relaxation. Now, how I do it, it's relaxation. Although you could be hypnotized and not be relaxed. There's a lot of ways to describe it, but it does seem to be a different kind of brain chemistry. Some people view hypnosis as a totally different state of consciousness. And it seems to affect different areas of the brain. So we don't really know, but something is going on.
Can everybody be hypnotized?
Even you. Everybody can be hypnotized.
I don't know, man. I don't think I can be hypnotized.
Yeah, it's really interesting because there's the hypnosis that I would do where you're hypnotized, formally by somebody, but then there's just environmental hypnosis. So if we go on the idea that hypnosis is a kind of focused concentration, a lot of times people will use the example of, have you ever driven your car and then missed your exit? Or you're driving.
Didn't that just happen to you?
Well, I knew that I missed the exit. Yeah, driving here, but I knew that I did. So, yeah. I don't know, maybe it was a kind of hypnosis that I didn't realize the cars were there. Anyway, so if you're driving somewhere and you miss your exit because your mind was focused on something else, or if you're driving someplace you drive to all the time, and then you arrive, you go, I don't even remember driving. Some people would say that's a good example of hypnosis. Maybe some people would say that's a good example of daydreaming and trance, which is kind of like hypnosis. Again, we don't really know what that is.
Okay.
So another way to think about hypnosis would be it's a learning state.
Okay.
Different ways you can think about this. I usually talk about, when I'm talking about hypnosis, the idea of suggestibility. So in suggestibility, there's something called the critical mind, and the critical mind is that logical part. That's why when some people say, some person might say, I can't be hypnotized, or I don't believe in hypnosis, or there's sort of this sense of pride that they can't be hypnotized. You want to be suggestible sometimes. You want to have the ability to be suggestible, because when someone is suggestible, and we all can develop that, some people are more suggestible than others right off the bat, but when you are suggestible, when you allow yourself to get into that state, when you put away the critical mind, the logical, analytical mind for a while, you can enter into this deeper state of transformation where you can change not just your limiting beliefs, because you're probably not going to want to change the beliefs you like,
right,
but you can change these behaviors that you have and possibly go so deeply that you're changing your genetics.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's where the magic happens.
So saying that, is there some type of science or philosophy behind hypnosis?
Meaning what? What do you mean?
Meaning, is it like based on neuroscience? Is it based on physics, the laws of physics?
Well, there are a lot of studies out there. Look them up that support what is actually happening in hypnosis. And again, we don't really know what is happening, but we do know that people are getting a very real response to a whole host of areas that we can get into. But it's a weird amorphous area that we don't really know about, which is kind of cool because some people are these super responders. Like, for instance, with sort of a typical session for me. Somebody comes in, I talk about what hypnosis is and what it isn't, and that everyone can be hypnotized, and that some people, when they're hypnotized, they feel like their body's really heavy, and some people feel like their body's really light. That when I'm talking to them, they're going to hear everything that I say, that they're not going to be asleep, that I can't make them do something, that at any point they could open their eyes, get up, and walk out, that they will not only be aware of everything that's going on, but they might be more aware. So like when they're, again, I usually relax them, but when their eyes are closed and they're listening to my voice, all of a sudden they might think, oh, now I hear the air conditioner. Now I hear the traffic outside or whatever. They hear more, they experience more. Okay. And what scientifically what might actually be happening is in this like state we're in right now, probably, we're in relatively mid, maybe high beta frequencies. And the more you slow down brain frequency, the more you go from an external reality, meaning the external world is dominant and seems more real. We slow down the brain frequency from beta to alpha, a little bit slower, sort of a relaxed, daydreamy, to possibly theta, which would be a really ideal state for hypnosis. And then the internal world becomes more dominant, so that this internal world becomes your reality. Like things outside like that, people walking by. If I were hypnotizing somebody, and let's say, I don't know if you can even hear this, but people were walking by and we heard them. If this were a state and I was trying to relax you and I heard that, I might actually give that to you as a suggestion saying, and as you're listening to me, even those outside noises can relax you.
Dude, my body's starting to feel really heavy.
Yeah, well, hey, so you can be hypnotized. So it's going down in brain frequency so that the internal world becomes more real. And that's where you have access to things like changing behaviors, changing beliefs, possibly changing, depending on how long you do it and how suggestible you are, which is something I view as a superpower, possibly changing things like your genes, and that's where the idea of epigenetics comes in.
So have you read the book You Are the Placebo?
I have read the book.
A little bit about that because that's one of my favorites.
Yes. Well, he actually went to the same, this is Joe Dispenza. He went to the same hypnosis school that I did. So there's that.
Nice.
So it was fun to read that book because it was a similar dialogue. Like I say, there is the placebo effect going on and there's something else. I would say that not only are we the placebo, our body is our unconscious mind.
Right.
So yes, it's the mind, but our body reacts to suggestions that it's been given by the environment, suggestions that at one level or another we've chosen, and it reacts accordingly. If you listen to your body, you're in tune with it, all things are great. If you don't, and maybe you ignore your dreams, and you ignore that little voice in the back of your mind, then you might start experiencing some things in your body. Because it's your body like saying, knock, knock, you're not paying attention to things. Symptoms of something deeper, possibly. So that's kind of what I do. And one thing that happens a lot in hypnosis is I do the first session, and let's say somebody comes in and they're at whatever waking level this is, whatever brainwave level, frequency, whatever that they're in. I find that a lot of people are in some quasi-suggestible state when they walk in, other than the fact that they're like, it's hypnosis and he's going to hypnotize me. But to some degree, they're already in a kind of hypnosis. Now, one thing that I do is I'll take them deeper in their suggestibility, deeper into that hypnotic state that they might already be in, so that when I give the suggestions, give them some suggestions to block things, and what we're actually working on, when I take them out, they're more awake. They're less suggestible to their environment. Because the ideal situation is to be able to be suggestible when you want to be suggestible, like in a controlled place like hypnosis, where I'm only giving you positive suggestions. And then when we take you out, being blocked to the negative suggestions that you're going to see all around you in your environment, and just sort of use this as this, like I say, this positive tool that you can use for specifically what you want.
So what type of issues do you most frequently work with people about?
Okay, well, so the classics. So you have your quitting smoking, losing weight. When it comes to losing weight, or usually I would say reducing weight, or being more healthy, or releasing weight, because losing implies finding it again, type of thing. When I work with someone on weight loss, yeah, I'll give suggestions for possibly wanting to exercise more, so exercise motivation. Definitely suggestions for specific things in their diet, but also different ways to interact with food and to view food. But I always, 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 for something like weight loss, something we've talked about in other areas, love.
Yes.
It's whatever your weight is now, whether you think you're 5 pounds overweight or 500 pounds overweight, love who you are right now, and that's the main suggestions I'm giving. Love who you are right now, feel attractive, deserving of love, deserving of sex, of sexual attraction, of sexual fulfillment, deserving of all of these different things as you are right now. However, whatever your goal might be, whether it's again 5 pounds or 500 or more, it's love that now, because that's what your body needs to hear. You don't want. I've had clients come in. Speaking of like suggestions, I've had clients come in and say things like, "Oh, my doctor, since I was a kid, has always said you're going to be battling your weight."
Oh, wow.
So these are things that I have to reprogram.
Right.
And that's one thing I talk to them not only about, like, well, what is your diet like specifically? It's, well, what are your beliefs? What have your beliefs been about weight, or about smoking, or about sleep? Sometimes they just want me to like give them a sleep track to fall asleep at night, but it's like, why are you not sleeping? To me, it's that's more powerful, where they might come in and we'll talk about the reasons why they're not sleeping. Usually it's stress related, often in completely other areas of life that has anything to do with sleep. And once you resolve those, sleep kicks in, and it becomes this wonderful positive circle, this feedback loop of they get better sleep, it helps their stress, and this wonderful thing that builds. Other areas, things I never would have thought of. I mean, well, yeah, things like fears and phobias are common, but like people will come in for one thing, like maybe business success, and that's pretty common as far as, can I, be more motivated for this or have more creativity? But then it leads to other things. So they might come in for business and it leads to health things. They might come in for health and it leads to business things, because everything is related in one way or another.
Everything is interconnected?
It is interconnected.
Wow.
Yeah. Are you shocked?
Cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's news to you. No, it's not.
What are some of your most rewarding cases that you've done, like that stick out in your mind?
Some of the most fun are when, like, I've had people come in where they'll maybe say something like, "Oh, I feel pretty good health-wise, and my relationship's doing well, and they kind of like their job, but I just wish that life were better, or that life were bigger, or I expect more, or it could be whatever." Like, yeah, and it's like sort of the Joseph Campbell thing I go to a lot, where it's get them on their bliss, or get them doing their bliss, even if their life is pretty great. It can be better. If they're making $2 million a year, how about $10 million a year? If their relationship is a 10 or whatever they think it is, it can also be better. So sometimes that's the biggest joy, is helping somebody that thinks their life is pretty great realize that that was the tip of the iceberg.
Do you have a specific story that stands out in your mind?
I don't know that I have a specific story. It's just sort of like little nuggets here and there, where one of the joys that I get is when I use hypnosis with somebody, and it's sort of this, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, so really they're allowing me to hypnotize them. And a lot of times, although not always, I'll ask, do I have permission to hypnotize you? So this is sort of, I guess it's specific to each person I hypnotize, but the general effect that I like is when I'm talking to somebody and they come in for whatever it is, for whatever their issue is, and we're relaxing, and one way that I hypnotize is I go into hypnosis myself. I've maybe mentioned this before, but I become relaxed. Obviously my eyes are open, but I become into that state so that I have more ideas come to me as far as what I want to tell them. And by being in the state, then they can be in that state. But what happens is I start to see a change on their face. So it was the person that they presented when they walked in with whatever issues they thought were issues. And then we start talking, and it seems like literally their face changes. And yes, they could become more relaxed, but I start seeing what I believe to be like their actual self, their core self, their higher self. Awesome. And this is who I'm talking to. Now, because I'm hypnotized, my core self is also there. So we're no longer talking here, we're talking from this level.
Oh, wow.
And that's where the suggestions are coming from. At least it feels like that.
And that's also, what is the name of your company?
Mythic Heart.
Oh.
How about that?
Is there a connection?
Who knows, right? So that's what I like, is essentially I feel like I'm reminding them of the answers that they already know. And I used to think that if somebody came in and they wanted to, again, work on weight loss or smoking or sleep or fears and phobias or being more confident is very popular. A lot of fears of public speaking, numerous health issues, relationship strategies, sexual difficulties often come up.
Ooh, do you want to share that story about
which one?
The woman who had a well, I don't want to ruin the punchline, but who you walked through the experience.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
We can, yeah, the thing.
Dude, the thing.
Okay, so yeah, well, right, hypnosis is a wonderful tool to help people really to experience the power of their mind. So I worked with someone who was having, I'm assuming you mean the orgasm issue, yeah. Yes, hypnotic orgasm. So had issues, this is a woman who had issues with achieving orgasm. And whether it was, with somebody else or by herself.
And this was in a group of people?
This happened to be, both. It was individually and also in front of a group. It was a demonstration. So you can imagine that show.
I know, that adds a little more pressure.
Yeah. Oh, he'd done something prior to make sure that, and there's a lot of things that went into making sure that she was okay with doing this and how it would operate and how we would do this, the aftercare and everything. And so yeah, it was the idea of, in this case, getting her in touch with her body so that she could experience a very real physical orgasm with no human, including herself, touching her. And so what are the implications of that? One, sex is going to be great because you have that knowledge now going forward. But the suggestion I give is, okay, so imagine this, that you are able to have this amazing, wonderful experience, pleasurable experience, just by thinking about it.
Wow.
So if you're able to do that, in what other areas of your life can you have that apply? Definitely. Just the power of the brain, the power of the mind, the power of the mind-body connection. And it's absolutely true. Again, I believe that I'm reminding people in this conversation, which is one reason why I got into hypnosis, and that I always love the ideas of like telling stories, and that's what we did, where I did, as I'm going to inconspicuously look at the time here, they can't tell that I did that on video.
Did you just hypnotize them?
Yeah, they don't know that I don't have my glasses on, I have to go in closely. They don't know.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they won't know. And so I like the idea of telling stories, and so I love the idea of, hey, I can help people. And at the end of every session, or most every session, I get to have them just sort of relax and let me do the talking. Like, you just, relax a bit. And I can basically reiterate the things that we've talked about and reframe them, retell them in a story that allows them to sink to a different level. It's a little bit like when they say you should study before you go to bed. Because we have all these message units, this information that kind of build up during the day, and then if you go to bed, ideally, it's like you poke a hole in your thumb or in your foot or something, and the message units, the stress just disappears. Well, if I'm working with a client in hypnosis, they could be venting, although I don't love venting, but maybe we're working on things and they're venting, giving them strategies, things they can do, and then they're in hypnosis and relaxed. So then these message units go down, but also the things that we talked about, just the conscious suggestions of, hey, maybe you could try this, maybe you could do this. They sink in as though they were asleep.
Wow.
And now I'm actually giving suggestions and working through things in this suggestible state. Why is it a suggestible state? Because in this relaxed state, they've pushed away that logical mind, the overthinking mind, the mind that's hyper present in beta frequencies that's saying, what about this, what about that, and just overly critical, because again, it's the conscious mind, that the ego mind, the conscious mind, that needs to solve problems.
So one thing that's been coming up for me a lot when you're talking about this is it sounds like there's a lot of similarities between hypnosis and meditation.
Well, let's talk about the difference, or the similarities and differences. What is the difference? Well, I would say, for me, how I would describe meditation, at least how I do it and my understanding of it, is meditation is focusing on one thing, whatever that thing is. It's a mantra, it's your breath, it's a candle, whatever it is, focusing on one thing, ideally to then focus on nothing, to have all thought go away. And to sort of be in this no thought place, meditation. And you're relaxed usually, unless we're talking about mindfulness, which is to me very clearly different. So that's to me meditation, focusing on one thing with the idea that it'll go away and you clear your mind of all thought. Hypnosis is also an internal state, probably brain frequency wise it's very similar. The difference is in hypnosis you're focusing on something. And well, here's two differences in hypnosis. In hetero-hypnosis,
Hetero?
I know!
Is there a gay hypnosis?
There should be.
Awesome.
So hetero-hypnosis is when you're hypnotized by somebody else.
Okay.
Yep. I know, whatever, right?
It's boring.
Yeah. It was so much more exciting the other way. So like whether you're listening to something or somebody's in the room, obviously it's more powerful if somebody's actually there because they're giving you specific suggestions for you and they're reading what you're doing and whatever. So, but you're listening to it and focused on what he or she is saying. Self-hypnosis is just that. It's getting into a relaxed state, sort of similar to meditation, except you're working on something. So you might be giving yourself affirmations. You might be moving through a situation in your mind, like practicing downhill skiing or something. The thing I don't like about self-hypnosis, and why I don't actually even recommend it, is the idea in hypnosis is you're getting yourself into a suggestible state. Well, we're most suggestible to ourselves. And we often tell ourselves negative suggestions, that negative self-talk that everybody does with a high degree of frequency.
Right.
So if you're relaxed, you're in a suggestible state, and let's say you're saying something like, I'm practicing downhill skiing. Well, unless you've done this a lot and you're, let's say, a professional downhill skier, if you're a novice, you're probably also saying, oh, this isn't going to work. And remembering all the times you fell. And so you may be undoing not only not giving yourself positive suggestions, but in a suggestible state, giving yourself negative suggestions and undoing everything and making the fear response or the poor performance response worse. So I wouldn't suggest it. I think it's better to clear your mind and use hetero-hypnosis instead of self-hypnosis. So the difference, one is focusing on being led in one direction, and one is clearing your mind. That's what I would say is the difference.
Okay.
So there you go.
Well, is there anything else that I haven't touched on that you'd like to bring
up? Stage hypnosis, maybe touch on that a bit, because I often talk about this. People, a lot of times their first exposure to hypnosis is either something that they read about, usually television, movies that they've seen, and stage hypnosis. So they think, am I going to make them bark like a dog or quack like a chicken? Yeah. Which, we have other things to work on then. First of all, animals. And as I say, I can't make them do something that they don't want to do or is against their morals, personality, or ethics. So that's one thing. And so we just go through the whole idea of what it is and what it isn't. And I talk about stage hypnosis. Well, what is that? Is it real? It is real. And I did my first show about 2 months ago. The difference is we're getting the most suggestible people from the audience. That's why I usually have...
How do you do that?
Yeah, you do things like, okay, everybody put your hands out in front of you and clap them together and grip them really tightly. I'm going to count down from 10 down to 0. And with each count, they're going to get tighter and tighter so that when I get to 0, they'll be so tight that you will not be able to release your hands. And then I would do that. I count down 10, 9, 8, tighter and tighter. Closing your eyes now. 7, 5, 3, 2, 1. 0, they are so tight that you will not be able to release your hands. And some people, you can open your eyes if you want, will do this. And some people will do this and that and struggle and look around at the people they're with and laugh. and they
Those
can't.
are the ones you choose.
Those are the people that are the hyper-suggestible, possibly what we will call somnambulists, meaning they're suggestible to everything.
So, say that again?
A somnambulist, it used to mean sleepwalker.
Oh, wow.
I know. But if people sleepwalk as an adult, they tend to be more suggestible.
Okay.
But a somnambulist is a highly suggestible individual that we would want on stage. So when they're on stage, there's a lot of things happening. There is hypnosis happening. There's performance happening. So they're on stage, they're in front of a group. They have permission to do something. So it's like, I don't want to let the show down. I don't want to let the hypnosis down. It's fun. They're getting a laugh from the audience. There's a lot of things that are taking place, and hypnosis is taking place. Now, because they're highly suggestible, some people who are somnambulists will have some amnesia. It happens.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
They forget?
They'll forget what they did, so they might ask people they came with, like, hey, was I? Now, what'll often happen is as the day goes on or the night goes on, or whatever, they'll start remembering things. But while they were in hypnosis on stage, they weren't doing anything that was fundamentally different than their personality ethics. Yes, out of character, possibly, because they had permission to do so. It's a little bit like if you were to consume alcohol but not be inebriated. Meaning,
have you ever done that?
Well, in studies they have.
Wow.
Where they pretend to give alcohol to people, and they say, there was no alcohol served here, but they observe people pretending like they were drunk. So that's a study you should look up. So people thought they were being served alcohol, acted a certain way, and then it's like, oh, that was just essentially a placebo effect. So that's kind of what's happening on stage, in that they're getting permission to be a certain way that they might normally. Like, it's not me doing it, quacking like a chicken. It's the hypnosis making me do it, right?
Right.
Oh, we're going to keep using that forever now. Yeah. You're like, I wish it would go away. Wish I'd never said that.
I love to create my own vocabulary.
It's a meme now.
Like the tip of the berg, that was my meme last week.
All the kids are saying this, yeah.
Now it's going to be quack like a chicken.
Yeah, everybody, yeah. Anyway. What if we could make a chicken quack like a duck? So anyway, yeah, I don't know. So stage hypnosis is real. They're not really making someone do it. But the idea of being suggestible, and there's a whole thing, I mean, I love the idea of suggestibility because I do view it as a superpower. So if somebody's highly suggestible, one thing is I want to give them some blocks so they're not walking around in hypnosis, but they are more primed to what I'm doing quicker. Now, some people have, again, they won't know I'm doing this, so I'm going to go in and just look at the time. So we're running a little late. Again, they didn't know that I did that. So, yeah. I like to work with people on suggestibility so that when, again, it's like a muscle, so that if they're coming in and they're experiencing what deep hypnosis is like, when I take them out of hypnosis, they can be a little more blocked to things. Here's a couple of takeaways, since we should wrap it up. Okay, so if you want to know what hypnosis is, you can contact me. You can go to my website, which is available at the YouTube site, and I have some tracks they can listen to. And it's one way to get it. It's not as powerful as it is in person, but you get a sense for it. Things that you can do if you think that you might be hyper suggestible, other than being hypnotized and going lower and getting suggestions against it. Things you can do. Okay, we're back. We had a little bit of a glitch, but I was about to. Yeah, I know. But I was about to give some suggestions for people who feel that they might be in a hyper-suggestible state. They might feel like they're walking around in hypnosis and just absorbing everything. So if you're like that, one, you should go see a hypnotherapist or a hypnotist. If you don't, here's some practical things you can do. First of all, count yourself out. Now that might not mean anything for you, but count yourself out of the suggestible state. So say like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, eyes open, wide awake. Your eyes might be open, but it's just a way to trigger your conscious mind to be more conscious, be more present. Another thing you can do is cross your arms, cross your legs. We've been told that in like postural things where if somebody's crossing their arms, they're resistant to you. Good. If you feel like you're absorbing things and they're negative, cross. You want to resist those things. And even if you don't believe it and you think it's too woo-woo, it can be this anchor, this conscious mental anchor, if you want to be mental about it and logical, a logical, trigger for you to just think more reasonably, rationally, and not accept this negative suggestion or negative environment that you're in. So crossing your arms, crossing your legs, counting yourself out are some ways that you could practically be a little bit less suggestible, maybe using your logic or your reasoning, although that's fallible as well, but you can do that. So those are some tips.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah. If you have any more questions, you can contact me, go to my website, watch or listen to some of the tracks, and that's a little bit about hypnosis. So
thank you for teaching us about hypnosis
there we go.
Today.
All right. So enjoy your day, and we will see you next time when we're talking about not hypnosis, but
diagnosis.
Diagnosis. Not really related, but we'll see you then. All right.
All right. Until next time.
Bye-bye.